How to have a strong, long-term relationship. Hi guys, my name is Christine Loveridge and I'm a dating, relationship and personal development coach. And today I'm talking about how to have a successful long-term relationship. So something that I've learned quite recently from a couple of different sources. I learned from David TN about this, he's another dating coach, and also from Jordan Peterson after watching one of his recent interviews and podcasts. And it's basically about the actual success rates with some arranged marriages. And one of the reasons why it seems so hugely successful, arranged marriages, is because they're going from a place of not this kind of like passionate love, because we all sort of have this notion, especially here in the West, it's going to be like a very Disney kind of love story. You're going to see each other from across a room and you're going to live happily ever after, and you can have all this desire and passion for each other, and that's just going to perpetuate forever, and you're going to be passionate for each other forever, and you're always going to be in love and all this kind of thing. But actually the reason why arranged marriages work so well is because there's no choice. They're just set up with one person and they make it work. And that's essentially how they do it. You know, they fall in love with them after they've married them, or before if they've known each other. So obviously I don't know lots about arranged marriages because I'm from a country where the UK doesn't have that as its main philosophy for marriage. You know, we usually meet someone and then we get married to who we meet, who we fall in love with, as opposed to getting married and then falling in love. So I think one of the reasons why we have a lot of trouble in the West with finding partners and this kind of fairy tale fantasy of the one and all this kind of stuff is because we have so much choice. We, date one person and we're like, nah, they're not quite right. You know, they don't have big enough boobs, or they're not good looking enough. They don't have the six-pack abs, or they don't have the right amount of money in their bank, all these kinds of things, all these like weird criteria that we have for our perfect match. Now, of course, those are just a few. You might have some different ones. I'm just using those as like an example, right? So actually having less choice seems to be beneficial, especially in those marriages where they've been arranged. So that's something I found really interesting and something to think about. Perhaps one of the best methods to actually finding a partner is actually not looking for the perfect partner, but looking more for someone who you can actually have a long-term marriage and relationship with, and not focusing so much on how much passion you have for them and all that kind of stuff. But even then, you still obviously need to find someone who actually wants to be with you. You need to find someone who also wants to be in a long-term relationship with you and marry you. So obviously, because we don't do arranged marriages here in the West, that's not our primary way of finding people and meeting people and marrying them. We tend to find someone who we work with or who we went to school with, get to know them, and then marry them later on. Or we meet someone online now as well. That's the new way of doing things. The online dating apps, that's the way I found my fiance. If you want to find a really good match for yourself, then I highly recommend that you watch this video on how to attract the right partner, so you can at least have the same values and stuff, because even though arranged marriages do seem to have a huge success rate, unfortunately, if you do actually end up with someone who doesn't have the same values and doesn't have the same kind of lifestyle as you, it's gonna cause some conflict. So one of the examples I use all the time is from my previous relationship, where I was with someone who loved to go out partying and drinking, smoking, doing all that kind of stuff, where I was someone who preferred to do things like going on hiking, going for walks, having picnics, doing very family kind of oriented stuff that happens during the day, whereas they were much more of a nightlife kind of person. And also they didn't value monogamy, they were very promiscuous, and they cheated on me multiple times. So whereas I'm someone who's very monogamous. So you need to obviously find someone who has the same kind of values as you do and likes the same things. Otherwise, it's going to cause a lot of conflict and a lot of misery. So I go through some ways you can do that in that video. So I highly recommend that you go and watch that if you are single. So what about if you are in a long-term committed relationship already and you want to make it stronger, or perhaps things have been going a little sour recently and you're trying to get the passion back, or you're just trying to get the love back. Perhaps there's been some things going on that has caused a lot of conflict between you two. So how can you build a strong, romantic, long-term relationship? So the first point that I want to get into on how to build a strong, long-term relationship is to learn to communicate with each other. There's an author called Stephen Covey, and he made the book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I think that's what it's called. And basically in that book, he has a quote, and it goes like this. It goes, "Seek first to understand and then to be understood." So if you're having a discussion with your partner, make sure that you actually listen to them instead of trying to get your point across and getting them to only see your point of view. You need to understand their point of view as well. And the best way you can do that is by just asking them questions about what's troubling them. Now, some people may not want to talk about it. Some people prefer to sort these kinds of issues out on their own. But if it's something to do with the relationship and it's something that you need to talk about, then you probably need to sit down with them and try to get the information out of them and find out what's bothering them. Find out exactly what their point of view is. And basically, when you're doing this, you want to ask, you want to repeat back some of what they've said to you. So they may say, "Well, I'm really frustrated right now because you never seem to have time for me. When you come home from work, you just want to watch TV, and I feel like you're not appreciating me or looking me in the eyes anymore. I feel like I'm not getting your attention." So you're like, "Oh, I see. So basically, you're upset with me because when I come home from work, I'm not giving you attention and I'm just watching TV. Is that what you're saying? Is that what you mean?" And basically, that's kind of like how you need to word it. You just assume that you don't know anything. You need to say to them what they've said to you and be like, "Is that what you mean?" A good example of this, if you want to learn on good communication to have with your partner, is this video about how to communicate with your partner by I think it's Orville Hendricks, and basically he wrote a book with his partner called Getting the Love You Want. So I highly recommend that you get that book as well. And it goes through some really effective exercises on how you can communicate effectively with your partner. Now, of course, it's not good to bottle things up. You need to also express how you feel. But remember, first seek to understand and then to be understood. So when you've learnt fully what's on their mind, that is when you can say what is on your mind and what your point of view is. And then once you both understand each other's point of view, that's when you can kind of come up with a solution or a negotiation or a compromise, because you obviously don't want to sacrifice your own needs, especially if they're really big needs, to just please your partner, and then it ends up you being miserable. Okay, you need to make sure that you can find a place where both of you can be happy and try and find that win-win solution, even if it means cutting back on some time that you watch TV. You can still watch TV, but perhaps don't watch it for the whole night, if we go back to that example I was using earlier. So you can understand how these things can be negotiated and how these things can be sort of evened out. But you need to learn how to communicate. And the best way that you can do that is by asking effective questions. And again, please go and watch that video with Orville Hendricks and his wife Helen. So the next way to build a strong long-term relationship is not to let resentment build up. Now, Jordan Peterson discussed this in one of his lectures. I think he's discussed it multiple times, but basically it's this children's story about this dragon that keeps on getting bigger and bigger and bigger because no one is paying attention to it. So basically this little kid finds a little dragon and he's like, "Mom, look at this dragon." And then she's like, "Oh, there's no such thing as dragons." And basically each time she says that, the dragon just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So basically what this kind of illustrates is the elephant in the room kind of situation, that bottled up resentment. Because if you don't tackle things when they're small, like the small dragon, they're just going to get bigger and bigger over time until at some point it's going to get so big that there's just going to be a massive blowout. And that's when things like divorces happen. That's when things like almost, divorce-like arguments happen. Basically, when the problems are small, you need to tackle it then. So if you're starting to feel resentment towards your partner for whatever reason, you need to discuss it. You need to bring it up with them. You need to say to them, "Look, this behavior of yours is making me feel this way." You don't just go out and say to them, "Can you stop doing this because it's really annoying me?" It's best to have a discussion about it, and a polite discussion about it. A discussion that isn't just like pointing fingers and blaming someone. You need to essentially just be very specific and about what it is that's bothering you. So, look, when you said this to me, it made me feel this way. Stuff like that. Not like, you got to stop doing that because that doesn't make me feel good. You're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. Because that's not going to get you anywhere. Telling people that they're wrong is not going to help the situation. It's just going to make them become defensive, and it's going to make them kind of hold on to their beliefs. I've used this example before, but if you've ever argued with someone on the internet about something, you find that the more you argue with them, the more they cling on to their beliefs. It's best to avoid any kind of argument whatsoever. So you do this by just being very specific about this kind of situation. Like, you could even start off with saying, I'm sure it's not your intention, but when you do this, it makes me feel this. So you're letting them save face a little bit. Don't let it bottle up for years and years and years, or months and months. Try and get the thing tackled with straight away. Also as well, if you feel like your partner is starting to resent you, so if it's happening the other way, and you can kind of notice, you're kind of in tune with the way that they're reacting with you. So let's say for the last couple of weeks they've been very short with you, and you can tell something's bothering them, but perhaps you're just kind of avoiding it. If you feel like your partner is hoarding resentment towards you, or just not feeling good in some way, and you can tell something's off with them, discuss it with them. Try to get them to open up and talk about it. Try to address the issue while it's still small. And it might be a really difficult conversation, and it may go on for hours and hours and hours, and it may be really, really exhausting. But the point is that you need to start addressing it. You need to get on with it. You need to do it, because if you don't, it's just going to get worse over time. So even if it's going to be a really tough conversation, even if it's going to feel horrible the whole way through, you still need to do it. You still need to tackle it, because if not, and you just let it slide, and you just don't address it, it's just going to get worse. So my next point on how to have a strong long-term relationship is to continue to date each other and keep on putting your best foot forward. So something that happens in relationships is when you become so familiar with the person that you're with, you start to become too comfortable, and you start to stop putting your best foot forward. Because obviously you remember when you first started dating someone, you was always making sure that you looked good, you was well groomed, you took care of your hygiene, you was always putting your best foot forward, you was always being really nice to them and polite, and you was really close to them and stuff like that, and you was doing what you could to make the environment romantic. You need to keep on doing that throughout your life with your partner. You need to make sure that you continue to do the same things that you did at the beginning of the relationship, because that's how you will keep your partner interested in you long-term romantically. Because if you don't, what will happen is you two will start to become more like friends as opposed to romantic lovers. So you need to make sure that you do try and keep that romance alive. I know sometimes it can be more difficult than others, especially if, let's say, you used to go out and have meals together, and now you've got a family and you don't have as much money anymore. Those kinds of, that's obviously very understandable, but there's still times when you can put in effort. You can still make yourself look nice. When you wake up in the morning on a weekend and you have that family time, dress up, look nice, take care of yourself, take care of your appearance, and aim to create dates with the person that you're with, even if they're really cheap dates. It might be just something that you do in the living room. It doesn't necessarily have to be a huge expensive meal like maybe you was able to do at the beginning of your relationship, but it's all about putting in the effort. And once your partner sees that you're putting in the effort, they will start to put in the effort too, if you're worried that you're going to put in effort and they're not going to do so. Be the leader, and if you are the one that is putting in the effort, they will follow suit. They will do the same thing. If you put effort in your appearance when you two hang out with each other, when you two go on dates, they will do the same as well. So aim to carry on dating with each other, and aim to keep the romance alive in your relationship. And that's one of the best ways you can do it, to continue dating each other and treating each other romantically and being chivalrous with each other like you did at the beginning of the relationship. So my next point on how to have a strong long-term relationship is to give your attention and your presence to them. So again, this goes back into, when you become really familiar with someone, you don't put your best foot forward anymore. And basically when you first start dating someone, they've got your whole attention all of the time. You just want to be around them. You're just so fascinated by them. You're asking them questions about themselves. You're looking them in the eyes. You're staring at them face to face and wanting to know more about them, wanting to be close to them. You're giving them all of your presence and all of your attention. But unfortunately, what happens with long-term relationships is you start paying more attention to the TV or to your video game console or to even your children than you do your spouse. And of course, you need to obviously give attention to your children, but your partner also needs attention as well. You both need that romantic connection, and you both need that romantic attention to each other. So obviously you can do this on dates. You just need to get yourself back into that feeling of treating it like it's one of your first dates with them. So another thing as well is, like, if your partner wants to talk to you, the best thing for you to do is to put the remote down or your video game console remote and talk to them. You need to give them your attention and your presence. So especially when you can tell that they really do want to talk to you, or they've done something and they want some appreciation. When your partner makes you some dinner or brings you a cup of coffee, look them in the eyes and tell them thank you. Really give them that attention and that appreciation. If you can tell something is troubling your partner, if you can tell that they're upset about something, the worst thing you could do is to carry on doing what you're doing and not give them your attention, or to roll over and go to sleep, or to continue watching TV. That's the worst thing you can do. The best thing for you to do is to look at them, stop whatever it is you're doing, and give them that attention. And, if you're doing this and you feel like, oh, I just want to go back to watching TV, or, oh, I just want to go back to playing Mario, or, oh, I just want to go to sleep. In that moment, you're not actually listening to their concerns and their worries. You're more focused on you. So, if you can feel that, and you can feel, yourself getting bored because they're just there talking to you, you need to hone in and really give them your attention. Stop focusing on the TV show that you want to watch. Start focusing on them. And if you become really interested in what they're saying, your interest will naturally go into it anyway. It's important that you give your partner that time and that attention, especially when they really, really need it. But it takes two to tango. You need to make sure that you're actually with someone who is going to do all of these things for you as well. Now, if you start putting your best foot forward, you start trying to communicate with them better, you start giving them more of your presence, you stop bottling up resentment and try to get a conversation out of them when you start to feel any resentment or anything towards them. If they don't give you that back, if they don't start doing the same thing, and even when you've told them the reasons why, you think, okay, well, you can send them this video, and you can say, look, there's these things that we could do, these things we could do to keep our relationship alive, and they're just sitting there thinking, yeah, well, I don't want to do that. That sounds really boring. That sounds really stupid. I'm not doing that. Then you need to consider if this is someone you can actually have a long-term relationship with. Remember, this person that you're going to spend the rest of your life with is the person you're going to be spending the rest of your life with. So who you spend the rest of your life with is really important. It's really important that you get that right. It's really important that you find someone who is willing to do these things with you in order to keep the passion alive. Because if you're with someone who is not going to do those things, there's no point. You're just going to be miserable. Which is why it's really important that you watch that video I suggested earlier on how to attract and find the right partner. Because if you don't have the same values, if you don't have the same interests, now I'm not saying all of those things need to match, but the real deal breakers do. So for example, if you think back on the relationship I was previously in, where I was with someone who didn't value monogamy, who didn't value, doing more family-oriented things and only wanted to go out drinking and stuff like that, then obviously that's a huge deal breaker. That's going to cause a lot of misery. Now, it doesn't matter that they like Gilmore Girls and you like Dawson's Creek. That kind of stuff doesn't matter, okay? I don't know why I used those two examples. They were like the first things that just popped into my head. But regardless, it doesn't matter if they like that and you like this. That's not much of a big deal breaker. I'm sure there's still things that you could find that you like watching together. But it's those really big things like monogamy, like wanting children, like wanting animals, the kind of lifestyles that you live. So if you're a couch potato, but there's someone who likes to go out running, those things are going to matter. You need to have the same kind of lifestyle and the same kind of values, especially about life and relationships. So if those things are a match, then they're a good match for you. And if they're a good match for you, then that's great. You're probably going to have a great relationship as long as you also implement these ideas that I've put in this video. But if they're not, if they're the complete opposite and you hate everything that they do and you hate their lifestyle, or they hate your lifestyle and they hate everything you do, it's not going to work out, okay? So anyway, I hope this has helped you. If you need help with a specific situation, then please go to www.christineloveridge.com/shop and I'll be able to help you personally. If you have any tips yourself or any stories, then please leave them down in the comments so we can help each other out. Please like this video, please subscribe, and I shall talk to you again very soon. Goodbye, guys.